In New York, and the controversy over Robinhood and its actions over the last week capturing everyone's attention far beyond just the financial world. After the online stock trading app restricted trading on certain companies, Americans are now asking for answers, and so too are lawmakers. The House Financial Services Committee is just one congressional council that's poised to examine all the recent activities surrounding Robinhood and GameStop stock. Now, joining us now is one of those representatives, Patrick Mahenry from North Carolina. Representative, always a pleasure to have you here, sir. Thanks so much for joining us. We should note for our viewers, you're also the ranking Republican on the Financial Services Committee. So you're calling for a hearing on this issue. We've seen a lot of people want to talk about that as well. Maxine Waters has as well. Do you think a hearing is likely going to happen? And what specifically would you like to find out from Robinhood's leadership in this?
Well, I've called for a hearing, and I think we'll have a hearing in the next 2 to 3 weeks in the House of Representatives in the House Financial Services Committee. And I think that's a good thing. We need to understand if any laws were broken, any regulations were broken here, and what exactly happened with this larger moment of Reddit users outsmarting and outwitting hedge funds. It's a fascinating prospect that this happened with individuals organized, and we need to know whether or not that is in fact the case. We know that's the narrative, but we want to make sure that that is what the evidence shows us. The other thing I'd like to convey is that this shouldn't be about a company. There are many ways that individuals can trade stocks. Many different apps from long-standing companies to new companies. Most have the benefit of free trades. And so I think we need to look at the overall narrative here, the democratizing of finance, and what good is going to come out of that over the coming years.
Yeah, Representative, it was interesting during the interview that Elon Musk did with the CEO of Robinhood. He essentially said that the reason they had to stop those trades the other day was they had to conform to regulatory capital requirements out there. Also, it seems like they needed more liquidity, which is why they've raised an additional $2.4 billion. How, I guess, do we make sure that this doesn't happen ever again, given the fact that so many people are now interested in more retail investors are now interested in day trading now?
Well, we have to make sure that the regulation is appropriate for broker-dealers to hold capital. We need to understand the clearing process. Clearing of stocks like at issue here have been sort of a long-standing process for a number of years here in the United States on third-party clearing. We need to understand the time that it takes to settle those stock trades. Right now in the United States, it takes 2 days to settle those stocks. We have a number of new technology applications, including blockchain technology, that can enable much faster settling. For instance, when you settle Bitcoin, it's a much faster process than settling a traditional stock. So we need to understand the use of that technology and how we can speed up the settlement of these trades. And so there's a lot to look at here, not just about one app, but about the overall movement of individuals wanting greater access to sophisticated financial products, which they're currently limited from accessing. We need to change those rules to open those things up, I believe, and I think that's what the evidence will show.
Representative, what is it about this issue that we saw everybody in Washington across the political spectrum, from the most conservative members like Ted Cruz and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Elizabeth Warren, all in bipartisan unity? What is it about this story that makes Washington feel like they're in sync here?
Well, this is a true power of the people moment where you see Reddit users, Reddit's not really a new piece of technology, communicate with each other about what large sophisticated hedge funds were doing to a particular stock. And so they took action. That's what it appears to be at this point. And that is absolutely fascinating, captivating to elected officials in Washington on both sides of the party. And so it is really an interesting moment because you saw average everyday investors outdo the most sophisticated of investors. For me as a policymaker, I understand that we have regulations on the books around accredited investors that say in order to get access to sophisticated financial products to get access to early stage equity investments, stocks in particular. You have to be a sophisticated investor, high net worth sophisticated investor. What this moment shows me is that average everyday investors can be quite sophisticated, and simply having a wealth standard is not a sufficient mechanism. We need to ensure that people can test in to the accredited investor standard so that these average everyday investors can get those deeper, earlier access to sophisticated products. And I think that's a broader piece of this narrative.
Congressman, we know there's still so much we don't know about what happened last week. All the more reason for a hearing for us to find out exactly what happened. A lot of people have been speculating last week potentially Robinhood maybe potentially could have been in contact with other people, institutional investors, to get more liquidity and restricted potential trading on the stocks because of all of that. Is that inherently illegal if they did that?
No, I'm not keen on conspiracy theories. I'm very interested in the facts here. I'm not interested in just what the one of the co-founders of Robinhood has said about their platform. I want to understand the facts. So I'm not going to get into opining about one business, nor am I going to get into opining about average everyday investors and the investments they're going to make. We do know that the buyer should be aware. We don't know how these things end up for either a firm or for an individual investor. And everyone, but no one should be taking financial advice from a member of Congress, that's for sure.
All right, Representative Patrick McHenry from North Carolina. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. And sticking with